Chapter 14 The Circle of Wholeness. Two halves, one whole. In American culture, people often say, "He's my other half." It is a tender phrase, one that echoes both romance and truth. It does not mean that we are broken without another person, but that we are created for companionship, to reflect and complete one another. Even in the Bible, it was written that God saw man alone in the garden and said, "It is not good for man to be alone." And so He created woman not as an accessory, but as a finishing touch of creation, the heart that made a circle complete. The union of the two souls is not a measure of weakness. It's a celebration of divine balance. Together, they become a living symbol of harmony, masculine and feminine, giving and receiving, action and intuition. Alone, each is already a masterpiece of creation, but together they mirror the wholeness of God Himself, the image of love that gives and receives endlessly. In this understanding, marriage is not about losing individuality. It's about expanding the self through love. The completeness of life is not achieved by erasing who we are, but by allowing another to reflect the beauty we cannot see in ourselves. Over time, I have come to understand that true wholeness is not a solitary achievement. It is a shared awakening. It is when two people walking to their own spiritual paths come together not to feel emptiness but to overflow with love. The divine design of companionship. The creation story in Genesis holds a profound lesson beyond religion. God created man from dust and gave him breath. Yet, after giving him dominion over all things, God said, "It is not good for man to be alone." This was not a flaw in man's design. It was the invitation to relationship. God did not create woman from man's head to rule over him, not from his feet to be beneath him, but from his rib close to his heart, to walk beside him and share his life. That detail, simple yet divine, reveals the essence of the wholeness, together born from equality and love. When two people meet in the sacred covenant of love, something miraculous happens. Their energies intertwine. The strengths of one complement the weaknesses of the other. The dreams of one find their roots in the vision of the other. They become one body, one spirit, not by ownership but by union. This is why in American tradition of marriage vows we say to become one. It is not poetic exaggeration, it is sacred truth. Two halves meet to form a perfect circle, and in that circle God dwells. The circle as a symbol of love. Throughout life, we find that everything sacred moves in circles. The earth orbits the sun, the seasons repeat, and the wedding ring, a perfect loop of gold, symbolizes eternal commitment. There is no beginning, no end, no corner, only a continuity of love. When I look at the gold ring on my hand, I see not jewelry, but the geometry of divine. That little circle carries generations of meaning. It represents not only just a promise, but the wholeness, the idea that life and love return endlessly to their source. In my own marriage, I have learned that love is not always fireworks. Often it's rhythm. It is the steady beat of daily companionship. the small kindnesses, the shared laughter, the forgiveness after misunderstanding. The circle of love widens as it matures. It begins with two people, but it expands to include family, children, grandchildren, and even those whose lives we touch indirectly. A whole life is not a perfect one. It is a circle large enough to hold joy, struggle, growth, and grace all within the same sacred space. While in the circle, we often think of wealth as something we possess, but true wealth is something we share. In marriage, wealth is not measured by assets but by abundance, the abundance of patience, time spent together, of mutual respect, and of unwavering support. The richest moments of my life were not the ones spent counting money, but counting blessings. The mornings when my husband brewed coffee for me without saying a word. The evenings when we sat in the backyard oasis he built, surrounded by flowers I tended. In those moments, I realized wealth and love are not separate currencies. They are the same energy expressed in different forms. When love flows freely, abundance follows. When gratitude fills the heart, prosperity multiplies. The law of the universe is reciprocal. To give is to receive. When we pour love into our partner, it returns in the form of security, harmony, and peace. In that sense, a successful marriage is the truest form of prosperity because it creates an inner wealth no market can measure. Happiness as completion. Happiness in marriage is not the absence of differences. It is the art of weaving two perspectives into one tapestry. There were days my husband and I saw the world differently, sometimes even stood on the opposite sides of an argument. But love, real love, is not about agreement. It is about acceptance. He has taught me strength. I have taught him tenderness. Together we balance. Together we complete what life intended. In American culture, belief that the spouse is the better half. I see great beauty. It is not saying that one half is superior. It is a humble recognition that the other brings out the best in us. The Bible says, two are better than one, for if either falls, one can help the other up. Ecclesiastes 4:9 verse 10. The verse has become the quiet prayer in our home through seasons of loss and gain, through changes and challenges. We have learned that happiness grows when we hold each other not by perfection but by presence. True happiness, I have found, is not an emotion, it's a rhythm of gratitude. It's waking up next to a person who has witnessed both your strength and your weakness and still chooses you every day. Success in harmony. In my younger years, I believed success was something I had to achieve alone. I thought independence was the mark of strength. But with time, I learned that shared success has a different glow. It's brighter, deeper, more lasting. When my husband and I built our lives together, our successes intertwined. His victories became mine, and mine became his. We were no longer competing for light, we were reflecting it. The American dream often praises individuality, and indeed it was a great gift, but within marriage, individuality transforms into interdependence. We remain ourselves, yet we become more than ourselves. Success then becomes not a solo mountain, but a shared garden. We lived through the years of labor, saving, planning, and watching dreams take shape. But the true success came in the quiet evenings when the day's work ended and our hearts rested in knowing we did it together. To live in wholeness is to live in companionship with both purpose and people. When love and ambition work hand in hand, life becomes symphonic. Wholeness is not solitude. To be whole doesn't mean to be alone. Wholeness means living in right relationship with ourselves, with others, and with God. There was time when the modern world celebrated independence so loudly that interdependence began to sound like weakness. But every soul, no matter how strong, longs to be seen and understood. In truth, wholeness includes connection. Just as the sky completes the earth, the night completes the day, we too are completed by love. The person beside us does not fill a void. They reflect the divine image within us. They help us see what we cannot see alone. It is not a loss of identity to love deeply. It is the expansion of identity. Love stretches us to become more compassionate, more patient, more giving, and through that growth we rediscover ourselves not smaller but fuller. The circle across generations. In our later years, my husband and I often find ourselves reminiscing about how far the circle has grown. From our two lives become three sons, and from them new families of grandchildren. Each generation adds another ring, another layer of love. When I watch my grandchildren play in the garden, I see traces of both of us, the humor of their grandfather, the curiosity of their grandmother. Our love story continues not in words but in the laughter of the children who will one day tell stories of their own. The circle of wholeness does not end with us. It expands through those we nurture. It's a legacy, the eternal ripple of love. God's design was always multiplication. He never intended for one seed to stay alone. He created life to reproduce beauty, kindness, and meaning through generations. The marriage of the two souls is the soil in which the miracle grows. Wholeness through the eyes of faith. Faith teaches that every relationship is a reflection of the divine. Just as God is both creator and comforter, so too are we called to balance strength and tenderness, wisdom and humility. When we love another deeply, we are imitating God's heart. It is said in Scripture that he who finds a wife finds what is good and receives favor from the Lord. Proverbs 18:22. That verse has always reminded me that love is not a coincidence. It's a blessing, a divine arrangement that fulfills God's intention for our joy. Wholeness, then, is not a solo path of self-discovery. It is a sacred partnership with the Creator and with those He placed beside us. In marriage, we are given the holy opportunity to practice unconditional love daily, to forgive, to serve, and to grow in grace. When happiness and success merge, as life unfolds, I have come to see happiness and success are not three separate roads. They are one circular path converging at a center called love. Wealth provides comfort, happiness gives meaning, and success brings fulfillment. When all three meet in balance, life hums like a well-tuned instrument. But the secret is this: they only merge when the heart is alive. Without love, wealth becomes burden. Without gratitude, success becomes emptiness. Without companionship, happiness fades. It is the motion of inner peace and outer abundance that we discover the circle of wholeness, and that circle always leads us back to love, both divine and human. The quiet completion. There comes the time when we stop striving and simply appreciate the lives we've built. For me, that time arrived not with fanfare but with peace. I look around and realize my greatest accomplishment was not any award, not the books I have written, not the goals I have achieved. It was the life I lived with a man who stood beside me. It was the laughter shared, the hands held through storms, the quiet mornings of prayer and gratitude. Wholeness is not found in perfection, but in completion, and completion is often silent. It feels like a deep exhale, the soul finally resting in trust that everything is as it should be. The spiritual geometry of love. If you were to draw a line, you might draw a circle within another circle. The smaller is the individual self, our personal growth, dreams, and the consciousness. The larger one is love, encompassing and protecting it. And beyond that, another circle, the divine surrounding both. This is how the universe works. Each soul a part of the greater harmony. When two souls join, their circles overlap and create a sacred center, the space of we. That space is where love lives, where prayers rise, and where both find shelter. The marriage circle is not meant to trap, it's meant to contain light. It allows two people to grow individually while being held in the divine unity. The closer we move to that center, the closer we come to God. The lesson of the circle. Wholeness is not about possessing everything. It's about realizing nothing essential is missing. The modern world teaches us to chase more wealth, more success, more love, but the circle teaches us to return to gratitude, to presence and simplicity. Every lesson in life, whether joyful or painful, is part of the same whole. Our successes teach confidence, our failures teach humility, our relationships test our patience, but also reveal our capacity to forgive. The circle of wholeness is not something we build, it's something we remember. For the truth is, God made us whole from the beginning. He simply desires us to find the wholeness through relationship with Him and with one another. Epilogue. The circle completed. Now, in the golden season of life, I see how every path, every challenge, every love led me back to this truth. Wholeness was never out there. It was within and between us all along. I see it in the way my husband's hand still fits mine after decades. I see it in the smiles of our children who carry our stories forward. I see in the harmony of life, not perfect but peaceful. The circle is complete. We were never meant to walk alone. For the first breath of Adam to the last whisper of every human heart, God wove love into fabric of existence. And through love, whether in marriage, friendship, or faith, we return to Him whole again. Life lessons. You are already whole. Life's purpose is to remind you of it. Wholeness is not found in standing alone, but by standing together, two souls, one heart, under grace of God.